if Dr. Moya becomes the mayor, she's going to do what the ANC and the EFF tell her to do. She's not going to be the boss.
You're not answering my question, though.
Please reframe
Dancing
it.
around with the ANC suggests that he's got no right, or his political party has no right, to self-determine.
He's got the right to dance around with whomever he likes.
And one can argue that the DA is facing the consequences of being a bad partner, a bad coalition partner, because that's part of the complaint. How they got here today, they blame it on how the DA behaves in a partnership, almost as if smaller parties' job is just to back the DA. It's the DA's way or the highway. And the consequence of that kind of attitude is today's outcome.
No, that's just an excuse. It's nonsense. The people... What saddens me is the fact that the citizens of Pretoria seem to be about last in the queue. Their concerns, their interests seem to be on the back burner, and all that matters is getting their politicians getting their hands on power. Now, you had a coalition government which was working, and Celia Brink, whom I've known since he was a schoolboy, is a really excellent fellow. He and that coalition government of his was busy turning the financial situation of Tshwane around. And almost everybody seems to think that they were doing a good job. But he had to be knifed because Mr. Herman Mashaba had his toes tramped on or something, and he wasn't going to be insulted and so on. So he pulled his people out of a working coalition and has been dancing around with the ANC, embracing Mr. Panyaza Lesufi and the EFF. And it doesn't surprise me at all why the EFF, in fact, Julius described Herman Mashaba as the EFF mayor of Johannesburg at one stage, to Herman's embarrassment. But so now he's clasping them and he's going to put them in power.
Douglas, when you speak about Herman Mashaba dancing around with the ANC, that is condescending. That almost suggests that Herman Mashaba has no right to have agents, or at least ActionSA, to decide who they want to work with, that the decisions that they make should be looked at in a particular way. I struggle to process dancing around with the ANC. When he was working with the DA, he wasn't viewed at in a negative light.
Well, he got to the stage where when he was the mayor of Johannesburg, where he lost the confidence of his own caucus. And that's why he got out, and that's why he went and formed his own party. So it goes back quite a long way now. And in that very first election which he fought, the ActionSA fought, they did remarkably well. They stood in only 6 metros in South Africa, and they got a lot of votes. In the general election, which followed recently, they lost more than half the votes that they'd got. And my prediction is that they're going to lose another half of the votes. Because in Tshwane, the people who voted for him must be horrified that what he's doing is taking a working coalition, of which his party was part, taking them out of power and putting the EFF and the ANC in power.
You're not answering my question,
make no mistake
though.
about it, if Dr. Moya becomes the mayor, she's going to do what the ANC and the EFF tell her to do. She's not going to be the boss.
You're not answering my question, though.
Please reframe
Dancing
it.
around with the ANC suggests that he's got no right, or his political party has no right, to self-determine.
He's got the right to dance around with whomever he likes. But he must face the consequences of it, because the sort of people who voted for him certainly wouldn't want to take a working coalition led by the DA with ActionSA in it, take it out of power and put the ANC and the EFF into power.
And one can argue that the DA is facing the consequences of being a bad partner, a bad coalition partner, because that's part of the complaint. How they got here today, they blame it on how the DA behaves in a partnership, almost as if smaller parties' job is just to back the DA. It's the DA's way or the highway. And the consequence of that kind of attitude is today's outcome.
No, that's just an excuse. It's nonsense. The people who served on the mayoral committee in Tshwane got on like a house on fire.
Yet, Freedom Front Plus has had some complaints. I've spoken to some in Freedom Front Plus about working with the DA. The ANC grumbles every other day. They're members of the GNU. You see Helen Zille making public utterances and threats, in essence, in the public domain quite often.
Helen says if we're all members of the Government of National Unity, surely we should try to cooperate with each other. And surely where the metros in South Africa generally are in a mess, the ANC and the DA should be cooperating. Instead of which, Mr. Lessufi and the Gauteng ANC didn't want any deal at any price with the DA. That's why they kept us out of the provincial...
The so-called GPU vision.
Abib.
The GPU, the Government of Provincial Unity that
Yes,
the
that's
DA
right.
wanted.
He
Yeah.
made derisory offers which he knew the DA couldn't possibly accept. And he seemed to be determined to do the same in the other metros in Gauteng.
Wow, this confrontation continues in a bit. But I think it's really interesting to also understand how the DA is actually trying to fight back what's really going on in Tshwane. And it appears that this Tshwane issue has actually set the whole nation, in some kind of like turmoil. And that actually spells out the kind of politics that we actually experiencing in South Africa. Really interesting and also really nice to also understand. But Helen Zille, who is the federal chairperson of the DA, is actually mounting a fight back, trying to reinstate Celia Brink, but also especially towards the next election. So I think I found a really interesting report. I think this is on IOL that speaks about how Helen Zille on Tuesday said that the ANC has not responded back to her letter. So she actually sent a letter to Fikile Mbalula, talking about the removal of Celia Brinks. And in that letter, she said that she penned after the removal of Celia Brinks as Tshwane's mayor, and that in the letter as well, in her letter to Fikile Mbalula and David Makura, so she sent to both Mbalula and Makura, Makura is the head of the political training in the ANC. Helen Zille actually gave the ANC an ultimatum demanding the re-election of Brink to the helm of Tshwane. So this was 1 month ago. So she noted in that letter that if Brink is not reinstated, that the DA has threatened to withdraw from ongoing negotiations to stabilize other metros across South Africa. And this is the part of this interview that are actually coming up. And that's why it's really important to really understand, because both the journalist and this former DA chief whip would be really having a really intense brawl on the issue of the DA threatening the GNU most times when it doesn't have its way and all that. But anyway, Helen Zille speaking, she says, the ANC has not come back to me, which is a clear indication that they are very divided internally. When the ANC doesn't come back, when I don't hear from them, it means they can't reach an agreement. And this is what is happening at this time. Zille also said that there has been a few WhatsApp messages and other informal communication, but that letter was her last formal interaction with the ANC. She said that the communications with the ANC sought to secure stability, stability pacts in the metros. And she's now speaking again. She says it was all about seeing whether we could get stability pacts going in various municipalities throughout the country, in Nelson Mandela Bay, in Tshwane, and also in Ekurhuleni and also eThekwini. But we were trying to get a stability pact for all metros. But when they decide to sponsor the motion of no confidence in Celia Brink, that obviously came to an end. So that's according to Helen Zille in the pursuit and the interactions with the ANC regarding especially how they wish to fight back. So now she added, saying that there will be no stability pact unless Celia Brinks is reinstated. It will just not exist. We will not be in those conversations anymore. So Celia Brinks' ousting from the Tshwane municipality is actually now, the whole thing with stability pacts in the municipalities, Ekurhuleni, eThekwini, Nelson Mandela Bay seems to be off the hook. You see, it appears that the DA is actually they're not going to be interested in those arguments, those discussions anymore, and now we're going to be seeing more force in trying to get Celia Brinks back. I expect that this would be in the local government elections that will be coming up, and then let's see. I think to really be interesting to see a Tshwane kind of like featuring a removal of the new mayor now, Moya, and having Celia Brinks back to Tshwane. I think that would be a really loud statement. That would be a statement both to the GNU but also to the Gauteng province, Panyaza Lesotho, and it will really be an interesting event to watch. But let's keep on listening to this really heated arguments between these journalists here from Eyewitness News and the former DA chief whip in this video.
And in other words, he's busy undermining the spirit of the GNU.
We'll get
and
into
Helen said, if you're going to take an excellent mayor and a working coalition out of power and replace it with something else, then you can't expect us to cooperate with you in stabilizing Nelson Mandela Bay and Ekurhuleni and Johannesburg, all of which are a mess at the moment.
The ANC doesn't need you to stabilize Ekurhuleni. It's working without the DA right there. But what I need you to help me understand
that's
is...
your opinion. It's not everybody's
I live in
opinion.
Ekurhuleni. They are in government without the DA's help.
Yes.
It's not an opinion. Now it's a fact.
Yes.
The fact is they have a mayor. They have a mayoral committee without the DA in it.
Yes.
That argument is laid bare. That's just a fact. They are there. It's not waiting to elect a mayor. I do know the mayor wants to incorporate the DA, but that stability with or without the DA is there. The quality of services, as a resident, you can ask me a different question. But before I do that, I want you to help me understand how at every turn almost, the DA says, do it this way, we walk away. There's a constant threat of GNU falling apart. And that comes from quarters of the DA.
That's never...
Don't sign the... No, let me finish. I'll give you examples. Don't sign the Bella Bill or we will walk. Don't do this or we will walk. Celia's Brink or we will walk. That is a constant thing that finds its way into the media landscape. It's coming from the mouths of leaders in the Democratic Alliance. Do not sign the Bella Bill or the DA will reconsider its position and walk away. Do not do this or the DA will do that. So how do you expect to have a functional power-sharing relationship when at every turn, and you do it again in the public domain, you're consistently 1 foot out the door?
Well, I think you're totally misinterpreting it.
Okay.
Nobody said they're going to walk out of the GNU because of Tshwane. Nobody said that.
Bring back or the GNU is vulnerable, or the GNU is under threat, or the GNU might not last.
Or you can't expect the DA to help you stabilize the city councils, the metros, that need stabilization in the interests of the people.